Guys, I didn't take my meds. Guys, hang on, I didn't take my meds. My gay meds. I didn't take them yet. Let me organize that. Why do I have my book up right now? Hang on, let me put this down. I don't need it right now. I'm organizing my meds. God. You don't get it. My functioning meds, and then my not sneezing meds. Do you know if you are taking allergy pills on the regular? I'm not sure. I think it's cetirizine. Anything with cetirizine, you can get like, if you suddenly stop taking it, you can get like rashes and shit. You can get like itchy. Bad reaction to stop taking it. Yeah. Anyway, I'm doing that. I'm doing my meds. Let me just take them. Bam. Okay. Happy Pride Month. What it just kept going. How does that song end? How does it go after that? I don't know. Anyway, we're reading Scum Type 7 Season 2. I don't know why I said season. Book 2. I know why I said it, because of sibilance. Anyway, I'm so excited for this book. This book is so good. Except for some things that make me sad. But this book is so good. Like, after the first book, I was like, it's okay. And then I read it, and then, oh, don't do that. Hang on, don't lag. Seriously, don't lag. No, not during Pride Month. This is homophobic. Closing all my unnecessary apps right now. Okay? We're not gonna lag today. That's homophobic, transphobic, ableist, and what other things do I have that can be discriminated against? Misogynist? I have tea. How's your day going? How's your Pride Month going so far? June 1st. Okay. Last we left off, they were getting the sun, moon, dew, mushroom bullshit. And, oh my god, this book is gorgeous. Can I just say, it's so pretty. It's so fucking pretty. Can I just pull up the inside illustration for this book real quick? Let me get that for you. Cause what the hell? I didn't notice this the first time I read this. Hello? It's not coming up. No! Don't tell me Don't do this to me. No. Let me in. Where'd it go? It doesn't exist. Huh? Wait. Bro, why is there already scuff and this bullshit on Pride Month? We love to see it. Anyway, let me just fucking pull it up manually then instead of dragging it like I should be able to. And cover. Oh my goodness. I feel homophobed. I feel very homophobed. That's not it. What? It can't. Ah! Oh, I'm so pissed off. I got all of these ready. And it's just not letting me upload them into OBS. You know what? Maybe it's finally time to upgrade my OBS. Update, rather. Okay, I guess we get no pictures today, even though they're the best ones! Even though they're so good! Ugh! Time to be mad and angry. Because I'm allowed to. It's Pride Month, but it's also Rage Month. It's also time to rage. Be angry. Be angry at your congressman. Anyway. Chapter, what is it? Chapter 6. Chapter 6 of the Scum Villain Self-Saving System is called Jinlan. Let's get started. 3 years went by in the blink of an eye. During these 3 years, other than occasionally asking Lu Chinga for assistance in clearing his meridians, I'm putting the mic closer, sorry, adjusting things. Sorry, I should have done this before, but I didn't take my meds. Sorry. Okay. During these 3 years, other than occasionally asking Lu Chinga for assistance in clearing his meridians to treat his poison, requesting medicinal prescriptions from Wu Qingfan, and briefly visiting Qingjing Peak to arrange leveling missions for his disciples, Shen Jingzhou spent the most of his time wandering about the outside world. He passed the days leisurely until an urgent notice from Yue Qingyuan arrived to suddenly summon him back to Sangchong Mountain. As the Qingjing Peak disciples had seen nary a shadow of their peak lord in such a long while, for his return they gathered at the mountain gates well ahead of time to welcome him. As soon as they saw Shen Jingzhou suddenly climbing the mountain steps, they all flocked toward him, clothes rustling. They love him so much! Oh, I don't have my book, my bad. Looks weird. Okay. The one leading them, Mingfan, had by now become a lanky young man. Though you couldn't say he was extraordinarily handsome, his features could still be considered neat. Anyhow, the sharp mouth and sunken cheeks he'd had in his youth were no more, and gone was that pretty cannon fodder's face that had been so gone was that petty cannon fodder's face that had been so obvious at a single glance. Even more striking was Ning Ying, who had become a lovely young lady with a splendid figure. Upon seeing Shen Jingzhou, she rushed over and grabbed his arm, pulling him up the heaven-ascending stairs. While being greeted by a sweet-smelling maiden was indeed a wonderful thing, Shen Jingzhou unfortunately couldn't enjoy it, especially because Ning Ying had developed quite nicely. No longer was she that dainty and delicate little girl of the past. Sometimes her chest would accidentally brush against him. In fact, it did so until Shen Jingzhou, face still expressionless, was steaming with cold sweat. He had once again thought of those 2 long chains of posts in Proud Immortal Demon Way's comment section, the ones demanding Shen Jingzhou's castration. His own. Shizun, you're always away from the mountain, Ning Ying said, cutely vying for his attention. Your disciples all miss you so much. This master has also missed you all, Shen Jingzhou said affectionately. That's not right, he was thinking. Shouldn't the one you miss be Lo Binghe? Why are you thinking about a scum villain? And as of Lo Binghe's wife, what is going on? And as one of Lo Binghe's wives, weren't you originally supposed to suffer 5 continuous years of sleepless nights and lack of appetite, becoming all emaciated and stricken with grief? Why does it look like you've become plumper instead? Boy! The disciples escorted Shen Jingzhou to Chongjing Peak. In Chongjing Peak's main hall, 11 peak lords had already all sat down. 1 or 2 trusted disciples stood behind each peak lord, with the exception of Lu Qingge. Traditionally, Baijian Peak's modus operandi was a handoff, shepherd style of education. Everyone trained their own. The peak lord would occasionally pop up to beat up a bunch of disciples, but other than that, they generally wouldn't teach anything else. This continued until a disciple could fight off their master, at which point the master handed over the title of peak lord. Thus, Lu Qingge naturally didn't have any trusted disciples. Shen Qingzhou greeted everyone in turn, then sat in the second seat, which was for Qingjing Peak. What the fuck? Shen Qingzhou greeted everyone in turn, then sat in the second seat, which was for Qingjing Peak, while Ming Fan and Ning Yingying stood behind him. Across from him were Jianshu Peak's Qi Qingqi and Lu Mingyan. Yue Qingyuan had yet to announce the start of the meeting, so Shen Qingzhou opened and shut the folding fan in his hand, playing with it while he looked around at the peak lords and their disciples. He found himself thinking that if Lo Binghe were still here, no one else would be standing behind him. Neither would there be any question as to who was the most outstanding disciple of Sangchong Mountain Sect's next generation. His thoughts were still running wild when Yue Qingyuan spoke. "Does everyone know of Jinlan City?" "I've heard a little about it." "Wait, Shang Qinghua, okay. I've heard a little about it," said Shang Qinghua. "It's located in the Central Plains, where the 2 great rivers, Lo and Heng, meet. The city values trade, and it's said to be quite prosperous." Yue Qingyuan nodded. "Correct. Jinlan City is accessible from all sides by both land and water, so merchants from all over have always gathered there. But 2 months ago, Jinlan City shut its gates. Not only are the gates impassable, not even letters can be relayed." A healthy, thriving trade city shutting its gates with no warning was like a financial center abruptly breaking off all relations with other branches. It was illogical. There absolutely had to be more to it. Shen Qingzhou lifted the teacup by his hand and scraped at the tea leaves on the surface. Jiahua Monastery is nearest to Jinlan City, and my impression was that they share a very close relationship. If something did happen, the masters at the temple would have realized something was wrong. "Correct," Yue Qingyuan said. 20 days ago, a merchant from Jinlan City escaped the city via waterway and rushed to Jiahua Monastery to cry for help. If he was using the word escaped, it seemed that the situation was genuinely serious. The entire hall grew solemn. The middle-aged man was the owner of Jinlan City's first weapon shop. Over the years, he had gone to Jiahua Monastery to pray and burn incense, so quite a few of the temple's monks knew him. When he arrived, he was swathed entirely in black cloth, with only half of his face exposed. He was already wholly exhausted by the time he reached Jiahua Monastery. Jiahua Monastery, and he collapsed on the mountain steps as he told them repeatedly that there was a terrifying plague within the city. The monks guarding the mountain immediately carried the man. The monks guarding the mountain immediately carried the man into the main hall and reported the event to the head abbot. But by the time the head abbot rushed out with several other masters, it was too late. "He died?" asked Lu Qingge. The merchant had by then decayed into a skeletal state. Hadn't Yue Qingyuan just said that the man had exhausted himself by the time he reached the monastery gates? How could he have become a skeleton in the blink of an eye? Shen Qingzhou muttered. Shishong said that the merchant was swathed in black cloth from head to toe. Precisely. During the wait, a monk tried to help him remove the black cloth. However, when they touched him, he wailed in terrible pain, like his skin and flesh were being ripped off, so they didn't dare remove it by force. The masters of Jiahua Monastery were deeply disturbed, and after discussion they sent Master Wu Chen and several Buddhist elders to investigate that very night. As of today, they have yet to return. Compared to Shen Qingzhou and his cohort, the masters of the Wu generation were uniformly higher in seniority, and their cultivation wouldn't be lacking either. Hence, Shen Qingzhou was a bit flabbergasted. Not a single one came back? Ye Qingyuan solemnly nodded. Huanhua Palace and Tianyi Temple have also sent 10 odd disciples each. They met with the same result. No one returned. 3 of the 4 major sects have been dragged into this mess, so naturally Sangchong Mountain couldn't just passively observe. No wonder Ye Qingyuan had sent an emergency summons. Indeed, Ye Qingyuan said, with no other choice, our fellow cultivators from the other sects sent Sangchong Mountain an urgent letter with an emissary, pleading for our assistance. We will certainly lend it. However, this is a serious situation. I'm afraid there may be petty, ne'er-do-wells? What the fuck? Of other races fanning the flames to stoke this incident, stirring up havoc. Some of us will go, but some must stay behind to guard the peaks. In other words, to prevent a situation like the incident with Xia Hualing when they had been completely vulnerable. Needless to say, other races could only refer to the demon race. Lu Qingge was first to say, Baijian Peak is willing to escort Mu Shidi to the city. Since there was a plague, Chan Sao Peak's Wu Qingfan definitely had to go. Shen Qingzhou looked at these two, one who was responsible for making his medicine, the other responsible for clearing his meridians. Both were leaving, and Shen Qingzhou didn't have a protagonist's halo with which to protect himself. What if there was an unexpected incident? This was really too concerning. How could he not do his part to watch over them? So he hurriedly added, Jingzhou is willing to go as well. My original plan was for you to watch the mountain, said Ye Qingyuan. Of course Shen Qingzhou knew how to deal with them. All he needed to do was endlessly pester Ye Qingyuan. There is no need for Jiangmen Xishong to think me so fragile. Even if Qingzhou is untalented, he knows a few things about demons. If they really are the ones making mischief, I can still be of some assistance. The walking demon encyclopedia, both the original and current flavor, could definitely live up to this title. After all, there was that stack of records and ancient books in the back of Qingjing Peak's bamboo house, the same ones that hundreds of generations of peak lords had to read in full before they were allowed to succeed the position. Ye Qingyuan thought for a moment. If he let Shen Qingzhou go with Lu Qingge and Mu Qingfang, it would be far easier for Shen Qingzhou to suppress the without a cure poison still within his body. Also, if they got into a fight, the Baijian Peak Lord could protect him. Therefore, in the end, everyone was divided into 3 groups. The Lu Shen Mu trio would clear the way as the vanguard. They would go to Jinlan City first to investigate. The second group would wait outside and act in accordance with their report. The third group would stay and keep watch on Sangchong Mountain. The situation was urgent, so there was no time to leisurely take a carriage or boat. Though Shen Qingzhou disliked flying on his sword, he knew that at times like this, he needed to keep up with everyone else's momentum. Thus, thank you, Kinoru, for the follow. Welcome. Thus, hey, that means we're 10 away from 400. Yippee! Oh, okay. Thus the trio flew out on their blades. Before half a day had passed, Shen Qingzhou gazed downward from above the clouds, took a deep breath, and yelled to his 2 sect siblings, The Lo and Hung River junction is right below us. When they looked down from a great height, they indeed saw the 2 rivers meeting each other like a winding pair of endless thin silver ribbons. The water sparkled under the sunlight, akin to a haphazard dance of silver scales. Yee! One of the 2 rivers was the one Luo Binghe had been placed into after he was born, left to drift downstream, the Luo, from which his surname derived. The trio chose to descend at a wide and level hilltop. From there, they could faintly see the curling eaves of far-off Jinlan City, its tightly closed gates, and the raised drawbridge. Shen Jingzhou lowered the hand with which he'd shaded his eyes. Why didn't we fly straight into the city? In the past, at Jinlan City's governor's request, Jiaohua Monastery cast an enormous barrier covering their airspace, Mu Qingfan explained. Oh, I keep saying Qingfan, it's Qingfang. Fang, Oh, my Maria. Did you hear it? Did you hear it? I think you did. It prevents immortal swords or anything with spiritual or demonic chi from passing through. They'd be forced to veer off course. Shen Jingzhou had personally witnessed Jiaohua Monastery's barrier casting abilities with the group of barrier masters employed by the VIPs at the Immortal Alliance conference. If they ever ranked second, no one would dare claim first, so Shen Jingzhou didn't ask further questions. Since they couldn't descend by air and couldn't enter through the gates, there had to be some other means of ingress. As it turned out, Yue Qingyuan had briefed Mu Qingfan about the situation in detail, and he guided the other two through a forest. From within the shade of the tree there came a murmur of flowing water. That sound emerged from a low cave. Mu Qingfang waved the others over. There's an underground river here. It leads into the city. Shen Jingzhou understood. That weapons merchant escaped through here? Mu Qingfang nodded. Fang. Several merchants who participated in black market dealings use it to meet or smuggle goods through it. Not many people know this route, but because that weapons merchant had a good relationship with several of Jiaohua Monastery's masters, he once disclosed a few things to them. The cave entrance was covered in vines and stood only as tall as their chests. They had to stoop to enter. After walking for a while, they finally felt the ceiling rise, and the sound of flowing water began to gurgle. Several battered, worn-out boats were anchored by the riverbed. Shen Jingzhou chose a slightly better boat that at least didn't leak, then flicked his fingers. The lamp hanging at the bow flared with light. After looking left and right, he found only one oar. Shen Jingzhou made a gesture of request toward Liu Qingge. We'll be going against the current, so rowing into the city will require the person among us with the best arm strength. Shidi, if you please. With a dark expression, Liu Qingge took that long, thin boat oar and diligently began to use it as a punting pole. With each stroke, the boat leapt forward with an incredible distance. The lamp at the bow creaked and swayed jerkily. Shen Jingzhou pulled Mu Qingfan over to sit down and glanced at the glittering water by the boat. He could even see several fish happily swishing their tails as they swam by. The water is so clear, he said idly. Right after he said this, something much larger drifted along after the swimming fish. Face down in the water was a corpse. Shen Jingzhou shot upright in his seat. Fuck, a floating corpse? I just said this water is so clear, and you reward me by drifting over a floating corpse? Do you have to be so heavy-handed when you slap my face? Liu Qingge used the oar to hook the floating corpse and flip it over. It was actually another skeleton. They hadn't noticed earlier because its entire body, including its head, was swathed in black cloth. Also, as noted, it had been floating face down. Mushidi, do you know if this world has any kind of plague that can make a person instantaneously decay into a skeleton? Shen Jingzhou asked. Mu Qingfan shook his head. It's unheard of. Since they were moving against the current, they would be pushed backward unless they kept advancing. Having stayed still for so long, their little boat had already moved a distance back. Good morning. How are you? Luchinga picked up the oar again, and after a moment he spoke. "There's more ahead." Sure enough, 5 or 6 more floating corpses drifted toward them from up ahead, one after another. All were skeletons swathed in black cloth, just like the first. While Shen Qingzhou fell deep into thought, Luchinga abruptly stabbed the long oar into a nearby stone wall. The thin and brittle bamboo actually stuck straight into the solid, seamless stone. This stabilized the boat, fixing it in place. Shen Qingzhou had also sensed something was wrong, and he sprang to his feet. "Who is it?" A sound of hurried breathing came from the dark depths before them. The lantern at the prow of the boat faintly illuminated a human silhouette. Then they heard a youth's voice say, "Who are you? What are you doing, sneaking around in this underground river?" "You're here too. I'd ask you the same," said Shen Qingzhou, though he stood on a broken-down little boat, between his teal robes, black hair, and the long sword hanging at his waist, not to mention his every movement so calm and composed. He still possessed quite the immortal's demeanor. Shen Qingzhou had by now become an experienced poser and had managed to put his own spin on the badass act. As expected, the youth hadn't anticipated someone so high and mighty. He balked for a long moment before shouting, "You should leave! No one is allowed into the city!" Luchinga humphed. "You? Who could you keep away?" "There's a plague in Jinlan. If you don't want to die, then get out." "Young man, we are here precisely for that reason," Mu Qingfan said gently. When they refused to leave, the youth yelled angrily, "Do you not understand human speech? Hurry and get out, or else I won't be so polite." Before he finished speaking, what? Before he finished speaking, he was attacked. What? He was attacking them with a spear, ferocious, like a tiger, and heartily intimidating. Luchinga let out a disdainful laugh, and he pulled the bamboo oar out of the wall. With a flick of the pole, the youth was sent flying into the river. Yet the boy continued to spit and curse even while splashing about in the water. "Should we fish him out?" asked Shen Qingzhou. "What for? He's young and full of energy. Let's go." Luchinga continued to push them forward. The trio exited the underground river, but the illicit boat drifted back into the darkness along with the current. The exit was at the city's most overgrown pond, and not a single person was around. After they walked toward the center of the city for a while, out of nowhere, a set of footsteps caught up to them from behind. He's so cute. The bedraggled youth charged forward and yelled at them, flustered and annoyed. "I told you not to enter the city! What use is it to have you here? So many people have already come, saying they were going to save us from the plague. Head monks and big-shot Taoists. Hua Palace, whoever. In the end, none of them were able to leave. You're looking for death." So this young man had ambushed them in the dark with their best interests in mind. "Then, since we have already entered, what do you think we should do?" Shen Qingzhou asked. "What else can you do?" the youth replied. "Follow me and don't run around. I'll take you to the old monk." He's so cute! I'll die. There, I would pull up the illustration, but for some reason, OBS doesn't want to include it. Hang on a second. Hang on 1 minute. One very small second. No? Why is it like that? Hang on. Wait. No, it won't work. Never mind. Still won't work. Okay, great. I would show you, but goddamn, OBS is being homophobic on the first day of Pride Month. The trio had no objections. None of them were familiar with Jinlan City, so of course it would be best to have a guide to stop them from any accidental detours. Shen Qingzhou looked down and asked, "Young man, what is your name?" The youth puffed up his chest. "My name is Yang Yizhuan. I'm the son of the owner of Jinzi Weapons Shop." Was it possible that he was referring to the weapons merchant who had risked death to bring word to Jiaohua Monastery in search of aid? As Shen Qingzhou appraised the youth, Lu Qingge asked, "What are you looking at?" "The way I see it, this child can exchange a few blows with you, and has a pretty good temperament," he replied. "Both traits are hard to find. He's a promising talent." "What does that matter? I don't take disciples. Too bothersome." As they walked into the main part of the city, more and more pedestrians began to appear, but this more was only in comparison to the previous empty streets. At most, there were only 3 or 4 silhouettes per street, and all were buried in black cloth from head to toe, their movements hasty, like birds startled by a bow or fish slipping through a net. The Jinzi weapons shop was appreciably large. It sat on the widest main road and occupied 4 storefronts in a row. All connected together into one store. It even had an inner courtyard, inner hall, and cellar. Master Wu Chen was in the cellar. He lay on the bed, a blanket covering his lower body, and as soon as he saw Sancheng Mountain Sect's reinforcement, he began to chant Amitabha. "Master, the circumstances were urgent. Let's skip the pleasantries," said Shen Qingzhou. "What is this plague raging through Jinlan City? Why do you enter but never leave, without even sending a message? And why is everyone wrapped in black cloth?" Wu Chen forced a smile. "The answer to all of Master Shen's question is in fact one and the same." As he said this, he lifted the blanket covering his lower body. Shen Qingzhou stiffened. Underneath the blankets, there lay only a pair of thighs. From the knees down, everything had disappeared. Where there should have been a pair of calves, there was nothing. "Who did this?" Lu Qingge asked sternly. Wu Chen shook his head. "Not who." Shen Qingzhou was puzzled. If not who, then did they disappear on their own? Unexpectedly, Wu Chen nodded. His pair of legs did indeed disappear on their own. His legs were still swathed in black cloth from the knees up. Wu Chen reached out, straining to unwrap them, and Wu Qingfang hurried to help. This may make everyone a bit uncomfortable, Wu Chen warned. The black cloth was unwrapped layer by layer. When Shen Jingzhou saw what lay inside, his breath stopped. Great Master, you call this a bit uncomfortable? The place that should have been Wu Chen's thighs had thoroughly festered, the skin necrotized, is that how you pronounce that? Into a mass of rotten flesh. After the black cloth was untied, a terrible stench came from them in waves. Steals all the A's from the novel? No! I'm already having trouble reading as it is. How could you? This is Jinlan City's plague? Shen Qingzhou asked. Yes, said Wu Chen. When this disease first develops, red patches appear in a small area. After 3 to 5 days on the short end, half a month on the long, the red patches expand and fester. After another month, the rot advances down to the bones. In order to delay the progression, one must swathe oneself in black cloth and avoid exposure to light and the elements. No wonder everyone in the city had bundled themselves up until they were black mummies. Remember to properly clean and care for your wounds for real. Ugh. If the disease... Who is this? Okay. If the disease develops over a month's time, why did young Jian Sheng, the fellow who went to notify Jiaohua Monastery, instantly decay into a skeleton? Shen Qingzhou asked. A sorrowful expression appeared on Wu Chen's face. This old monk is ashamed to say that he only later discovered that the infected patients can survive for approximately a month as long as they stay within Jinlan City. But if, after they are infected, they go a certain distance away from the city, the disease's progression accelerates. My Tushidi discovered this the moment after they rashly tried to leave the city and return to the monastery. No wonder no one could enter and no one could leave. What is the origin of this disease? Lu Chinga asked. How is it transmitted? Wu Chen could only sigh. This one is ashamed. We have passed a great deal of time in this city, yet we still have not made any progress toward a solution. We do not know the illness's origin, nor its method of transmission. We do not even know if it can be transmitted. Wu Qingfang was shocked. What do you mean? Shen Qingqiu realized something. Observe the weapon seller's son. He has been taking close care of Master Wu Chen for a long time, yet he wears not a strip of black cloth. His skin is still intact and he is quite healthy. If this is truly a plague, wouldn't it be strange that Master Wu Chen had not infected him? Precisely, said Wu Chen. This one is terribly sorry to have let you all be trapped here. I'm just checking how long this chapter is. Quite long. Okay. We'll probably have to pause in the middle of it. Sorry. There's a lot of exciting things that oh my god, there's a lot of exciting things that happen in this chapter. Holy shit. It's a long chapter. I'll definitely have to split it between 2 readings. Oof, okay. What the hell? Hang on. Hang on, give me a second. Ugh, never mind, it's not working. Okay. You only intended to save people from disaster. There is no need for apologies, said Shen Qingqiu. He noted that Wu Qingfang was absorbed in investigating the festered parts of Wu Chen's leg, like he couldn't smell a hint of the stench. Mushidi, have you made any discoveries? Can you create a medicine to treat it? Wu Qingfang shook his head. This doesn't seem like a plague, but rather like... He looked at a few people around him. This humble one needs to examine more patients before he can come to a definite Shen Qingqiu exited the cellar, whereupon he saw the weapon seller's son heading back away from which they had come in a rage, a long sword slung over his shoulder. He smiled as he asked, Young master, what's happening? Someone entered the city again, young Yishuan huffed. Those people from Hua whatever are the most useless. They're all just rushing to their deaths. Huanhua Palace must have sent more aid, i.e. additional victims, but as the boy's face was puffed up like a steamed bun, Shen Qingqiu couldn't help teasing him a bit. Young man, your martial skills are rather good. Did you have a teacher? Yang Yishuan ignored him. Let me tell you, you should go find that Gege who tossed you into the water today, Shen Qingqiu continued. He is most formidable. Fighting a few rounds with him would be more effective than learning from anyone. When he heard this, young Yishuan abandoned Shen Qingqiu and ran. Having found Lu Qingge a sticky new problem, Shen Qingqiu was in a joyful mood. He walked a few steps and turned the corner, but when he saw the scene before him, he stopped in his path. The city was devoid of life, and the gates of every home were shut tight. Many of those who had become homeless in the first place had nowhere to go, so they could only gather on the street. Before, when carriages and horses had streamed through the streets, people coming and going, these forsaken had been afraid to show their faces, but now with everything so empty, they became fearless. They'd set up a big iron cauldron and piled firewood underneath it. Firewood underneath it, and they were boiling a churning pot of water as some plucked the feathers off a chicken stolen from who knew where. Also, I would just like to say, in my defense, this book's translation is not the best. It's a little difficult to read. It doesn't flow very well. So in my defense of my poor reading, it is quite difficult. This book in particular. I think it was one of the first of the Seven Seas Danmei translation, so that is why. Alright. Where were we? Where? Each person was wrapped in tightly bundled layers of black cloth, but upon seeing Shen Qingzhou, who was extremely conspicuous in their midst, they were not the least bit shocked. Instead, they regarded him like they would a corpse. After all, these days they had seen every kind of impressive-looking cultivator sweep into the city, claiming they would save the rabble. And had they been of any use, they died even faster than the local drifters. The cook rapped on the iron pot. Soup is done. Come get your share. Many of the drifters lying nearby who were picking at their lice rolled to their feet and gathered around, bowls in hand. This plague had distributed the rhythms of the entire city's day to day, so this spontaneous communal meal was liable to actually save some lives. They had to discover the origin of the plague soon. Silently making this resolution himself, Shen Qingzhou turned to go, only to come face to face with a person walking toward him. Oh, give me 1 second. I need to take off my, It's not a jacket. It's just a button up that I use as as for sleeves. Anyway. Because I'm getting a little hot in here. Ugh, okay. Huh? Okay, wait, what? Okay. They're walking toward him. They held a walking stick, their figure hunched over, and hand holding their bowl shaking so much it was about to slip. They seemed to be an old lady. Shen Qingzhou moved to get out of the way, but the old lady must have been weak due to age or fatigue from hunger. She tripped and crashed into Shen Qingzhou. As Shen Qingzhou helped her up, the old lady mumbled, apologies, I'm old and confused. She quickly walked past him and away, probably afraid people would take all the soup. Shen Qingzhou walked another 2 steps, then balked. Something was off. That old lady had looked like the faintest breeze would knock her over, but when her body crashed into him, hadn't it seemed even heavier than that of an adult man? He whipped his head back around. In that crowd of people clamoring for bowls of hot soup, the old lady he had just seen was nowhere to be found. Take it off. For real. I would. If it gets too hot. Yes. There was an opening into an alley to the left. Shen Qingzhou dashed into it in pursuit. He just managed to catch a glimpse of a hunchbacked silhouette flashing down the end of the alley. Fuck me, with this speed, they wouldn't lose to a runner doing the 100-meter hurdles. Old lady? Yeah, right. I must be blind. Shen Qingzhou broke into a run and gave chase. Though this old lady was indeed suspicious, could he be blamed for not realizing something was strange right away? Right now, everyone in Jinlan City cut the same suspicious figure, with all the walking around while hunched over and dressed entirely in black. Mid-chase, he suddenly felt an itch on the back of his hand and raised it up to look. This limb really was plagued with misfortunes. It was this arm that had been poked full of holes by Elder Skyhammer Tian Chui, and now it was this hand. that had become infected and was breaking out in red patches. Come to think of it, it had also been this hand that had first clicked on the stupid novel Proud Immortal Demon Way. If only he could chop it off. Ugh! With this brief distraction, Shen Qingzhou slowed to a step. Then he sensed someone charging over, sword glare at the ready. With a flick of his fan, he prepared to return fire with a blade of wind and yelled, "Who goes there?" The person sprang from a nearby roof to the ground. The two looked at each other, and Shen Qingzhou blurted out, "Gong Yizhao?" The youth immediately lowered his sword and responded in more shock than joy. "Senior Shen!" "Gong Yi! Gong Yi!" "It's me. Why are you here too?" Then Shen Qingzhou remembered that young Yishuan had said more of Huanhua Palace's people had entered the city through the underground river. That must have been the party with which Gong Yizhao arrived. "So, who is this? Okay. So, Huanhua Palace sent you to lead a scouting party in the city?" he asked. Gong Yizhao replied, "Indeed, this junior was ordered to investigate the city, but the leader is someone else." Who could it be? Who could it be? Shen Qingzhou thought this curious. Gong Yizhao was the favorite disciple of Huanhua Palace's old palace master. Before Luo Bingke appeared, everyone had tactily agreed that Gong Yizhao would be the next leader, and even the old palace master's beloved only daughter adored him. Whenever the disciples' generation did anything, Gong Yizhao was always in charge. Other than Luo Bingke, who could stomp all over this young man with his protagonist halo? Who else could steal such a position? But at the moment, there was no time to mull it over. "Let's chase them together," Shen Qingzhou said. Gong Yizhao gave a resounding agreement, and the two leapt forward side by side. The hunchbacked figure flashed into a 3-story building. Even from outside, a haze of fragrant powder assailed the nose, and as the structure was covered in beautiful decorations, it had to be some sort of brothel. But now there was no there were no joyful voices or laughing conversations, no signs or sounds of prosperity, only a gate left wide open, the main hall dreary and oppressive. Holding their breaths and on full alert, the pair stepped over the threshold. The chairs and tables in the main hall were overturned, leaving everything a scattered mess. Shen Qingzhou gave Gong Yizhao a look. "Let's split up and search. You check the private rooms on the left and I'll take the right." He used his fan to push open the nearest door. He could make out the indistinct form of a person lying in the bed, and initially raised his guard, but he lowered it soon after. It was only a skeleton, wearing a colorfully adorned jacket, its head covered in pearls and jade, lying in a serene position. Oh. This was likely one of the women of the establishment who, knowing her time had come, had dressed and groomed herself, donned her best clothes, and gone to meet her death in sleep. Perhaps it was the nature of women to insist on bringing their most beautiful selves even to the end. Shen Qingzhou sighed in sorrow, backed out of the room, and shut the door. Many rooms in a row each contained the corpses of women in formal dress. It seemed like this brothel had practically been wiped out. As Shen Qingzhou was about to push open the 6th room, he heard the sound of movement and human voices from the 2nd floor. As he flew up the stairs with Gong Yizhao, Shen Qingzhou stole to the front. But unexpectedly, before his feet had left the staircase, he heard the gentle voice of a youth. "It's no trouble." Though it was only 3 words, as soon as Shen Qingzhou heard this voice, it was as if he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. The fan in his hand crackled under the force of his grip. For an instant, it was like even his breath had ceased. He was paralyzed on the steps, but he could already see into the private room at the end of the long second-floor corridor. A group of disciples dressed in Huanhua Palace's colors had crowded around a person in the center. It was a youth wearing black, shouldering a modest, unadorned longsword, his complexion as clear as jade, his eyes like two deep pools of cold starlight, and he was at present nonchalantly moving toward Shen Qingzhou. He had grown up quite a bit, and the feel of his presence was far different from before, but even if Shen Qingzhou were beaten to death, he would never mistake that face. One that could grace the cover of a romance novel, no matter the angle. At the same time, a familiar voice, which had spent a long time gathering dust, spoke in Shen Qingzhou's head. In a mechanical tone reminiscent of Google Translate, it began to spout off messages like a barrage of gunfire. Hello. System activation successful. Yee! Oh my god, he's so beautiful. There's an illustration of him who... no way! Lo Bingke. It's obviously Lo Bingke. Universal activation key, Lo Bingke. Self-examination results. Central power source is operating normally and in good condition. Hibernation mode suspended. Normal operation mode activated. Downloaded and installation of update complete. Wait a minute, what the fuck? You actually updated? Thank you for your continued use of our services. Can I get a refund? Shen Qingzhou stared at this young man, who ought to have been familiar yet seemed a stranger. His limbs went stiff, and his throat dry. Wasn't Lo Bingke's grand comeback supposed to be 5 years after his fall? Wasn't he currently supposed to be inside inside an endless hell, carving his way through thorns, studying the blade, and farming monsters? Why had his ascension moved up 2 whole years? Why are you so impatient? If you rush your leveling, you won't have any safeguards, Bingke. Bingge. Specifically, Bingge. Shen Qingzhou had the urge to turn around and sprint down the stairs, sprint out of Jinlan City, and sprint out of this goddamn world. But right after he turned around, Gong Yizhao blocked his path, and the youth just had to ask, Senior Shen, why are you suddenly turning back? You really can't read the room, understand timing, or catch on to faces before you speak, can you, young Master Gong Yi? A seemingly gentle voice came from behind them. Shizun? Neck stiff, Shen Qingzhou slowly turned his head. It was only a simple movement, but right now it felt like his head weighed several thousand kilograms. At this moment, in his eyes, that perfect face of Lo Bingke's was more frightening than anything in the world. I'm sorry, my YouTube is being weird right now. Okay. What scared him even more was the expression on that face. It was neither icy cold nor a poisonous smile hiding daggers within, but a kind of tender look that could warm its recipient down to their bones. Fuck, don't act like that. It's terrifying. The more silky soft Lo Bingke's smile, the more thoroughly his opponent's soul and body were about to be destroyed. This statement was absolutely no joke. Shen Qingzhou's entire person was stuck at the top of the stairs, unable to ascend or descend, his hair rising all down his back. Lo Bingke strolled over and spoke softly. It really is, Shizun. His voice was velvety and light, but every word that emerged from between his teeth and every tap of his footfalls as he took each step sent Shen Qingzhou's heart through the equivalent of a high-altitude bungee jump combined with an ice bucket challenge. The guillotine blade was already over his neck. Nothing left but to face it. I'm gonna take my break here before we go any further, because an ad is about to start and I don't want to interrupt anything. So yes, we will take a break real quick and I will be right back. Burb. Alright, we are back. Right after the ads. Isn't that so fun? It's not like I was sitting here waiting for that to end. Anyway. Did I lose where I... Oh dear. Wait, where do we stop? Okay, yes. The guillotine blade. Let's continue. We're on page 32. Kind of towards the end of it. Shen Qingzhou gathered his composure and steeled himself. His right hand clutched the slats of his fan, the veins bulging faintly, while his left hand swept up the hem of his teal robes. With a lift of his foot and one more step, he finally made it to the second floor. With that single step, he was already about to burst into tears. Back in the year Luo Binghe had participated in the Immortal Alliance conference, their eyes had been level with each other's, but now Shen Qingzhou had to slightly lift his head to look Luo Binghe in the eye. He was already coming up short based on force of presence alone. Fortunately, Shen Qingzhou had been a poser for years now, so he had plenty of experience. No matter how terrified he was on the inside, no matter how turbulent his emotions, his sense, unperturbed expression was solidly baked on his face. Oh, okay. His serene, unperturbed expression was solidly baked on his face. Yes. After a long while, he painfully squeezed out a line from within his throat. What exactly is going on here? Luo Bingke gave him a smile, but he seemed to have no intention of answering. Instead, it was the group of Huanhua disciples behind him who crowded forward, clothes rustling. Only now did Shen Qingzhou realize that these disciples' attitudes were completely off. In his early years, Shen Qingzhou had been known in the way of a great and revered scholar, and his name had swept all throughout the land. Even when he met with others of the same generation, it was rare for them to not conscientiously welcome him with respect, to say nothing of a junior from another sect. Yet, these Huanhua Palace disciples seemed to be full of hostility toward him. Their gazes brimmed with displeasure, and some were already flashing their weapons. Given how Luo Bingke was standing there, perfectly unflappable, the group of perfectly fine youths from a famous righteous sect looked more like a gang of henchmen ready to rush forward and stake their lives for their boss, or like demonic lackeys poised to kill and burn. Don't you have it wrong, young people? Don't be in such a hurry to be someone's bodyguard, okay? As if this person behind you needs your protection, it's already pretty good that he's not harming anyone, but the person who really needs protecting is me! Me! Realizing that the atmosphere was off, Gong Yizhao inserted himself between the disciples and Shen Qingzhou. Put your swords away, he reprimanded them quietly. What sort of manners are these? They relented and showed some restraint. The ones who'd drawn their swords grudgingly sheathed them, but their hostility toward Shen Qingzhou didn't decrease. No wonder. Of course Gong Yizhao wasn't the one leading the party this time. A while back, if the most highly regarded disciple had spoken, none of his fellow disciples would have dared show displeasure. But now Luo Bingke was here, and his post-darkening brainwashing skills were first-rate, so everything inevitably revolved around him. Even after 10,000 years, no one else could ever again become the default leader. But even though Shen Qingzhou felt like he was about to suffer a concussion from pure shock, he still couldn't figure this out. When exactly had Luo Bingke infiltrated Huanhua Palace? In the original work's progression, that didn't happen until at least 2 years in the future. Both sides stood stiffly for a while, until a graceful young lady dressed in a light yellow outer robe abruptly emerged from the sidelines. You still have the time for this? She said while shedding tears. Luo Shishang, that scoundrel harmed Luo Shishang. Can't you focus on finding a way to help him first? Only now did Shen Qingzhou notice a humanoid figure collapsed in the far corner. It was that fake old lady. He looked at Luo Bingke again and saw that a portion of his sleeve seemed to have been shaved away by a sword glare, exposing a small selection of his wrist. Luo Bingke's skin was very fair, so the couple of red spots on his wrists were especially stark. Shen Qingzhou instinctively let slip. You were infected? Luo Bingke gave him a glance, then shook his head. It's but a minor wound. All that matters is that everyone is safe. With that considerate display of selflessness, for a moment Shen Qingzhou could almost believe that the individual before his eyes was still that bleeding, grass-loving little lamb who had huddled beneath his knees. He is. Well, he's not, but it's good. It depends who you ask. However, the Huanhua Palace disciples were really were good at raining on his parade. Isn't this just perfect? One remarked sarcastically. I suppose Senior Shen's overjoyed that Lo Binke... what? I suppose Senior Shen's overjoyed that Lo Shishang was infected by the plague, right? Shen Qingzhou was seriously starting to wonder when exactly he'd offended the entirety of Huanhua Palace. Gong Yizhao took in Shen Qingzhou's expression and felt incredibly embarrassed. He turned back to his fellows and scolded them in low tones. Be quiet, all of you. As a senior who'd made his name years ago, Shen Qingzhou could never sink so low as to squabble with insignificant youths who'd been brainwashed by the male lead. Expression indifferent, Shen Qingzhou dropped his arm so the sleeve naturally covered the back of his hand that had broken out in red spots after he'd first bumped into the fake old lady. Pockmarks covered half the face of the disciple who'd spoken once scolded. He resentfully closed his mouth. What? What the fuck? Pockmarks covered half the face of the disciple who'd spoken. Once scolded, he resentfully closed his mouth. His entire expression reeked of dissatisfaction. Then, Qin Wanyue spoke. Who? Oh, okay. It's all our fault, Lo Shishang. If you hadn't protected us, you wouldn't have... Shen Qingzhou had already roughly surmised the truth of what was spreading through the city. He could guarantee it on all the youth and frustrations he'd wasted following this 20 million word plus serialization for years. First, to a mixed lineage, heavenly demon like Lo Binke, this thing was the approximate equivalent of saline water or glucose, entirely harmless. It might even have health benefits for him. Second, if Lo Binke had let the others drag him down or been injured for their sake, that was definitely a plan of his own design. No need to ponder. Don't you know that's the fastest way to farm righteous reputation and favor points? Shen Qingzhou couldn't stand to keep watching the air of heartbroken grief hanging over Huanhua Palace's party. Of course, what he couldn't stand even more was having this silent stare-down with Lo Binke. It was as if both of them were waiting for the other to speak first. Instead, Shen Qingzhou steeled himself and prepared to do a bit of proper business. Without another sideways glance, he walked toward that fake old lady's corpse and drew Xu Ya. With a few slashes, he shredded the black cloth into pieces, revealing the body inside. As expected. At a glance, this person's appearance was ordinary, and it was impossible to tell if they were male or female. But that wasn't the main point. The main point was this, and it was dreadful. The body's skin was completely scarlet, like the entire thing had been thrown into boiling water and cooked through, yet rather than having been reduced to mush, the carcass was whole. A sower, said Shen Qingzhou. Sower was a type of profession. Yes, sower was a type of profession among demons. To put it mundanely, as Shen Qingzhou understood it, they were the demon realm's equivalent of farmers, farm owners, and wholesale food distributors. Due to a variety of reasons, including local geography and race, many of the demon realm's creatures had rather peculiar biological needs. This included a portion of demons who tended toward hardcore tastes. To put it concretely, they liked to eat rotten things. The more rancid and putrid, the better. Anything crawling with maggots was considered both an exceptionally exquisite delicacy and abundantly nutritious. But where could one acquire such a quantity of rotten things? This was the purpose of the sowers. The flesh of every non-demonic organism a sower touched and purposefully seeded would, after a short period of time, begin to fester. In days past, this practice had enabled a type of massive communal meal that had been popular on noble estates in the demon realm. The estate lord would capture some 100 living people and would corral them in a structure like cattle, then send sowers into their midst. Within 7 days, once the victims had sufficiently rotted, the doors could be opened. You could either let the people stumble out and eat them where they fell, or walk inside yourself and devour them on the spot. This manner of unique dining customs was disgusting in the extreme. Of course, the ancient heavenly demons from whose lineage Lobinka hailed were the most elegant and traditional of the demonic bloodlines. Equivalent to the demon realm's blue blood nobility, the average demon cultivator's B-point scores couldn't begin to compare to a heavenly demon's. Needless to say, the heavenly demons had not taken part in these faddish tastes. If not for that, Lobinka could be as handsome and rule-breakingly OP as he wanted, but girls would be unable to overcome this physiologically and psychologically taxing challenge this bizarre world-building detail would present in their worldviews. So Shen Qingqiu suspected. Think about it. How suffocating would it feel to kiss him if it were true? Ha ha ha! Why is he thinking about kissing him? Hey, why is he thinking about kissing him? Also, I'm kind of dying. I don't know what it is. Temperature? I don't know what it is. Am I too hot? Do I actually need to take off all my clothes? I think I might be too hot. Ugh. Hang on a second. Oh yeah, you know when you don't realize you're too hot until you feel the symptoms? Until you feel the symptoms, that's what I'll feel. Maybe I will take off my clothes. Nothing happening here. It's normal. Anyway. My throat's dying a little bit too. But I want to get to a good stopping point, but I don't know if there is one. I don't know if there is one. There's no scene breaks in this chapter. Kind of. There is, but is there? No, not anytime soon. Not anytime soon, there isn't. That's way too far away. I've only read like 30 pages. I got too hot. Hang on. I just need to cool off a bit and then I'll be good, I think. Oh. Okay. Put my shirt back on. Okay, go stand under the AC. Okay. 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 Now I can keep going. Now I can keep going. I was just dying. That's okay. Ha ha ha. Page 38. The beginning. Since sower as a profession was grossly anti-human, it had incited the uncompromising ire of many human realm cultivators at the time. Consequently, they had launched a campaign to eradicate all sowers. Quite a few nameless heroes had even risked infection and ended up perishing together with the sowers. Within 10 years, sowers had gone almost entirely extinct, becoming rare even within the demon realm. It was entirely normal for young disciples and ordinary cultivators to have never heard of them, but whenever he was at his leisure, Shen Qingqiu was in the habit of taking an aged text from Qingjing Peak's eclectic collection and reading it as a speculative fiction novel. So he understood the situation well. Unfortunately, his Unfortunately, this conclusion that had come to all by himself, which should have been a helpful contribution, went unappreciated. So Senior also knew about the demonic abominations that are sowers, Jin Wanyue said politely. Lo Shishang guessed the identity of the culprit a while back. Just now he explained the relevant information to us in detail. When she finished, she and all the other Huanhua disciples directed an adoring, longing gaze toward Lo Binka, as if his face were emitting thousands of rays of golden light. It's here. Could this be the legendary regardless of what the male lead says? Everyone else will feel their own IQ and knowledge get absolutely crushed by his words. Protagonist halo of wisdom. Lo Binka looked toward Chen Qingqiu and smiled. Everything I know was taught to me by Shizun. This fucker! I'm fine. The most terrifying thing was that Shen Qingqiu got the feeling that Lo Binka's face really was emitting a faint glow. Shen Qingqiu very much didn't want to waste any more time in this kind of eerie atmosphere. However, since Huanhua Palace had killed the sower, naturally the right to handle the corpse was also theirs. Who's this? If that's the case, may we borrow this corpse for study? Shen Qingqiu asked. It's possible Mu Shidi may discover something, and it may assist us in developing a medicine that will curb the epidemic as early as possible. Lo Binka nodded. Everything will be as Shizun says. This disciple will deliver the corpse promptly. The way that Shizun left his mouth every time he said it made all of Shen Qingqiu's hairs stand on end. At last, he actually understood how characters in the original work felt when facing the dagger-concealed smile of Lo Binka's. Shen Qingqiu pulled himself away and flicked aside his sleeves, then left without a second word. After exiting that abandoned building, Shen Qingqiu fell into a state of devastated psychological shock. His head swam as he walked, his steps unsteady. Gong Yizhao chased after him. When he saw that Shen Qingqiu's face was pale, his expression distracted, he nervously said, Senior Shen, I must apologize. In truth, I know that Lo Shishang was with Huanhua Palace, but our master ordered us to keep it a strict secret and not let outsiders know. Violators would be expelled from the sect. I couldn't inform you of the situation. Shen Qingqiu grabbed him. I have only one question for you. When and how did Lo Binka end up in your Huanhua Palace? I think we should end here. I think this is a good place to end. I know I only read like 40 pages. Maybe like 30, nope. Just 30. But boy, am I overheating and I can't take it anymore. So I am going to leave you on that note. Happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, even though everything is homophobic and transphobic and ableist and wow, misogynistic against me. Have a good day. I'll see you later. We love this, but I can't do it anymore at the moment. So I will take my leave. Let me see. Should I do a raid or should I just skedaddle? Oh, yeah, okay, I'm just gonna skedaddle. Okay. Okay, I'll see you later. Thanks for watching and have a good rest of your day. Goodbye.